Hi, I'm Heather Larson. I'm a payroll manager here at Redpath and Company in our client accounting services area. I've been with the firm for 5 years, and I'm here today to tell you about the Families First Coronavirus Act and the credits that you might be missing. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act was an act put out by the Department of Labor along with the IRS to protect workers and give them compensation and wages while they were absent from work due to the virus, but also had a layer that allowed the employer an offset tax credit to keep the employer whole for the fact that their employee workforce was home dealing with the virus. I believe the opportunity with the FFCRA that I've seen in the clients I've assisted is the missed credit taken on their Form 941s. And I think there was a misunderstanding when this credit first came out that employers thought that it was something that got taken on the business tax return, and they may have been sitting on it, but in reality, it should have been done quarterly on their Form 941 with the IRS. So I think the opportunity really is, did you not take the credit that was owed to you under the act? Not only do you get the wages, but you also get the Medicare tax for the employer portion, as well as qualified health plan expenses. So it's kind of a three-part credit: the wages, the employer Medicare tax, and any qualified health plan expenses. The biggest challenge I've seen with employers taking the tax credit deals with just compliance on the Form 941. It changed significantly, and I'd like to show you some examples of what I've put together of the different 941s that have come across my desk as I've helped clients, because I see a common theme, and I think it'll help to point out the exact spots you should be double checking on your own form filings to make sure that you followed through correctly and don't have the issue of having to file a 941X with the IRS, which is, of course, the amended version of the original Form 941 you would have filed. So here we have the Form 941. This is just a mock example where I want to show you some of the common areas of compliance issues that you could be experiencing as well as you look back at the forms you've already filed, and as you look forward to filing for fourth quarter, which we know is due January 2021. So just bear with me, but this is just the first page of a 941, and I'll show you the problem areas that I've seen present themselves. So the first area I would say is that when you zoom in on the taxable Social Security wages, we notice that the qualified sick leave wages and family leave wages are on their own line now. And what I've seen in a few examples is clients including almost like duplicating the wages on line 5AI and also including in 5A. Now in my example, I separated them, but in sometimes you want to just make sure you didn't also include the $1,000 back on line 5A because you will have overpaid in tax. The other thing I think happens a lot is payroll systems aren't able to calculate when you have this special earning code that's only taxable for the employee Social Security tax. You'll notice that we have a 0.062 rate right here versus 0.124. So I've seen more than a few employers pay too much in Social Security tax, and so they have a refund that usually comes back to them. So just this is one spot I think you should double check on your form, see how yours looks compared to the example. And then, of course, if you see an issue, you could go back and amend. The next area that I see issues, because it's a new form, really, it was added when they came out with the second quarter 941, and it's specifically on line 11B, the non-refundable portion of the credit. So really, if you look at your 941 and you know that you paid sick leave wages or family leave wages under the act, but you didn't account for them and this line is 0 on your return, there's a chance you need to go back and amend. This is the line where you would follow worksheet 1 as referenced on the form and determine what your credit is equal to. In this case, it was the $1,000 in wages, which you saw on the last slide, plus the employer Medicare tax on those. So that's how I arrived at my figure. So I would just recommend, if you have your 941 in front of you, look back to see if you referenced or called out any amount of credit on 11B. If not, you may have to amend. And another key thing, you see the word non-refundable. It does not mean that you're not going to have a refund coming to you. This is addressed in worksheet 1 that the IRS has put together, and you'll just want to make sure you're doing the worksheet to see which line you end up having to put this on. In almost every client I've assisted, it's ended up on 11B and not a different line, which I'll show you in a moment, where they call it the refundable portion. So, okay, now we're on to the second page of the 941, and you'll notice that we have a few more lines. Those of you that complete 941s know that they added a whole extra page. So what I want to call out first on page 2 of the 941 is line 12. And what's important about this line is this is supposed to tie to the number total you show on your Schedule B, which I'll show in a little bit here. But the key thing is that this figure really should be your total taxes less your credit. So you'll see, you know, back on the last page, I think we had 25,000 or so in tax liability. But because of the credit, you'll see that it reduces your total tax due to the 24,000 figure. So here's where I note, you want to make sure that line 12 is what matches your Schedule B. So if you have your 941 in front of you and your Schedule B, I recommend you see if line 12 and your total at the bottom match. If not, you likely have to amend. Next up, it's important to note that line 13A should be where you drop in your taxes actually paid. What did you deposit with the IRS? And if your system wasn't set up to take the credit correctly, you likely overpaid in taxes. So you'll see there in this example, they deposited $25,391, but they had a credit for $1,114.50. So in this case, they have a refund coming to them because they overpaid in tax. So I would say if you're looking at your 941 and your line 13A reflects the proper amount of deposit, but you don't reflect the proper amount of actual taxes on line 12, you may have missed the opportunity to actually get a refund back from the IRS, and you likely didn't have anything on line 15 down here in the green box as an overpayment. So again, review your 941, see how it came out, and if you had miscalculated in the refund coming back to you. Okay, this snapshot, for those of you that are familiar with the Schedule B, this is for semi-weekly depositors when it comes to payroll. If you're a monthly depositor, that was back on the other page. But this is pretty much, it's a full-length page that breaks down month by month what your liability was. So a lot of the things I've seen is that this total liability that I have highlighted here, that's the amount that's supposed to match line 12 on the previous page or the previous slide. And what happens is employers want to fill out the Schedule B based on the liabilities incurred. But that with these credits, you're actually supposed to be reducing your liabilities. So you can see in my case, I filled this out correctly. I've made my Schedule B match my line 12 on the 941. And to do that, what you need to do is go back to the first liability date in the quarter. In this case, I pretended that this employer only had liability in the third month of the quarter. And if you remember, 25,900 or so was my original liability and what I paid in. But you can see I reduced my first deposit or first liability of the quarter by the credit. So the goal is all the numbers should be working out in the end. And so if your Schedule B was filled out incorrectly in the sense of you filled it out based on liability, you likely have an issue with the Schedule B and the 941 agreeing and may get a notice or could do an amended return to capture it before the IRS sends you a notice. So in summary, some of the things I recommend you check specifically on the first page of the 941, does line 11B have an amount in it when you know that you paid out sick leave wages? 2, does your line 12 match your Schedule B total? So again, that's taking the two forms side by side. And lastly, does line 15, which of course was the refund line, does that reflect the full refund that's due to you? And if you remember, it's the credit for the sick leave wages family leave wages, the employer Medicare tax, qualified health insurance expense, and if for whatever reason you overpaid the employer Social Security tax, you'd also be able to recognize that as a refund coming back to you. So, I mean, these are all great things to go back and check, and even the IRS is encouraging employers to recheck their filings. Really, I think your next steps would be get out your forms you filed, review them, see if you have any mistakes. If there's questions you have, I think that at that point, you reach out to your trusted tax advisor to either review compliance issues that need to be corrected, credits that weren't taken, and really seek out refunds that should be due to you based on the act and the way it was written to make employers whole as much as the employee. I'm Heather Larson, payroll manager at Redpath & Company. Thank you for your time today. I really enjoyed telling you all about 941 compliance. I encourage you, if you have further questions or need assistance, to please fill out the Contact Us form on our website at www.redpathcpas.com. Thank you.